Like out of the way.
Welcome, nomads, to the latest episode of Soon Parted, and this is our first interview on Soon Parted, and I'm joined by Mallory Grantz, who is an anti-MLM content creator, and I'm going to let her tell about her stuff and shout herself out, but I am also going to tell you that the name of your channel is called I Don't Want No Huns.
Yes, and I can explain that.
Yeah, if you would be so kind. Actually, that was a question that I wanted to prepare you for. Because that expression may not be
it does seem to be lost on a lot of people. So the general, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek, I don't know if I want to use the word slang, but most of us who were anti-MLM or MLM reps or consultants at one point, it was really wildly known that when you received a message from somebody trying to sell you something, most of those messages started with, "Hey, hun." And so because we started, everybody in, like women especially, started to kind of become aware that if we got a message on Facebook that started with, "Hey, hun," we knew we were about to be pitched, especially if it was someone we didn't know. Mm-hmm. And so because that became the vernacular of how they started conversations, people who sell for multi-level marketing are called huns. And so as I was like stewing over this content and deciding if I want to create the song "I Don't Want No Scrubs" from the early 2000s kept playing in my head, which then my brain turned into "I Don't Want No Huns," and that's how my name came to be.
I'm feeling old because I'm going to plead innocence. I have not familiar.
So for anyone who would know, so there was an R&B group in the early 2000s called TLC, and they had a song called "No Scrubs," and the phrase was "I don't want no scrubs," and it was about like a guy who has no money and he's just like catcalling a girl. I mean, that's like what the song was about.
Is that what a scrub is? Because scrubs for me is something wholly other. It's a polyester outfit that you wear in the hospital.
Yes, it's one of those words that has two meanings. Yeah, so scrubs are what you wear if you're a nurse or a doctor. Right. And then a scrub back in the early 2000s was somebody who was like just poor, trying to get by, like just being the kind of guy that was going to catcall a woman and not like treat her well, whatever. I mean, that has nothing to do with Huns, but that's, so for my generation, specifically the elder millennials is what I guess we call ourselves now. We knew that song well. And so "I Don't Want No Huns" came from it. And then I created a parody song to that song, "I Don't Want No Huns." And that's that's kind of how that all.
I will, now this is not going to be published for the general public on YouTube, only for the nomads, but in the description of the video that I'm going to put up, I will put your content, your link there, and I highly encourage that everybody pause this video right here and go and subscribe to Mallory's channel. You will not regret having done so for reasons that are going to become apparent shortly. Now, we let slip a little bit here, but part of your story, which you're going to tell, is it okay to say you were a hun? Or you
yes. I mean, I was not a successful hun, but I definitely was a hun.
Join famous company, because as we know, how many huns are actually successful?
Oh, 0.01%, 0.03%.
Anyway,
yeah,
so
really bad.
You don't have to be a hyphenated hun. You can just tell us. Well, tell us your story.
My hun backstory.
You were in an MLM.
I was in two, actually.
Oh, wow.
The first one was one you'll be very familiar with. It's Tupperware. Tupperware is still very much, it's like, it's not the original MLM by any means. Amway is like the granddaddy of all MLMs, but Tupperware is very well known. All of our grandmothers had Tupperware, sold Tupperware, knew someone who sold Tupperware. And, to make a long, boring story short, I had a friend who hosted a party, and I went because I was like, sure, I guess this is a thing. And as I was watching her do her pitch, and she was giving out tickets for free Tupperware if we asked about the business, I kept thinking, I could totally do this. Like, I'm personable. I have I'm funny. I can do things. So I was like, I can do this. So she didn't even really have to try to recruit me. It was really sad. And so I joined Tupperware, but there was still a little bit of pressure because there was like a sale going on, like a promotion for people who joined. So she called me while I was out with friends and was like, hey, this promotion ends tonight. You know, if you join for $65, you're going to get all this stuff plus this cheese grater or something. I mean, it was like a cheese grater or something that, you know, who cares? And I joined like while at the bar with my friends. And I only did that for maybe 6 or 7 months. It was really, my cognitive dissonance was extremely heightened at that point because there was so many emails about gatherings that I should try to go to bring a friend to. I only hosted a handful of parties. And I was just very uncomfortable, even at that, being very theatrical. I still was just like, this is really uncomfortable. And the way Tupperware was set up at the time was the only way you could do online ordering was if you paid for a website. And I wasn't going to pay for a website at that point. And so I had to take the orders in person and take people's credit card information in person. And it was the most uncomfortable was when I had to call people and say, hey, your card was declined. And then people, you know, that's a really uncomfortable thing to talk to people about. And they would get combative and be like, well, you must have entered it wrong. And I'm like, possibly, can you retell me over the phone your credit card number? And I'm just like essentially a stranger. And it was just very uncomfortable. So even so, with that 6 months, I still have mountains of Tupperware that like we use, but I just got so much of it, you know, like they give you so much for hitting certain ranks and whatever, or sales quotas, yada, yada. So I quickly left, like just kind of let that lapse. Like I didn't keep selling. It just kind of fell to the wayside. And then I forget how much longer after that, it wasn't too much longer. A friend of mine from college, a good friend of mine, was selling Perfectly Posh. And from the time she started selling, I started purchasing from her. And Perfectly Posh is, it's a pamper, it's soap. What it is soap, face wash, masks, things like that. But they really focus on the pampering side of things to give yourself that me time. You deserve to be pampered, like really honing in on the pain points of moms who never get time to be alone and like, just, you know, wash your face, like just take time to wash your face. So I started buying stuff from her because I wanted to support her. And I liked, the products are good. Like it's never, the issue with MLMs is never about the products. The products, I still like those products. And I have some left that I'm working through, like I'm using them up. So it's never about the products. And then I guess it was like a year and a half into me buying from her, I was running out of stuff and they were running a promotion, as they always are. And I just decided I was in a bad space mentally. I was dealing with some postpartum stuff, lots of different, you know, very typical by the book pain points. And so one night I just decided to join and dove right in, like, you know, but I'm sure if you've watched my reaction videos to my old videos, I was trying to go from the angle of like not making it a big deal, not trying to be, you know, like your typical, I'm so excited about this opportunity, but being like, okay, guys, like, I'm just going to try it. I was trying to downplay. And I thought that was going to be like a good sales tactic. And spoiler alert, it wasn't. It didn't do me a lick of good. But I did that for 2 years. And when I started though, it was when I was unemployed. I was back in school getting my teacher certification. So we'll pause here for a moment, a little bit about my background. My first bachelor's degree is in performance. I have a BFA in musical theater. And I spent many years trying to perform. My original dream was like, I'm going to go to New York, I'm going to be the Broadway actress. And just the realities of what that takes, I realized that was not for me. It was not for me to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, to get in line for an audition at 6 a.m., to then go waitress and then still try to, you know, there's just so much that, and I just was like, I can't, on top of that, student loans. And, you know, basically, unless you have like a way to pay for living in New York City, somebody who can help you really, it's not realistic for a lot of people. And I just realized that pretty quickly after graduation. So I really fell into teaching, started doing a lot of teaching in charter schools and in performing arts schools. And then I taught at a charter school for 5 years, and they asked me to get certified as a music teacher and gave me 6 months to do it, or I would lose my job. And I was like, well, I literally can't do this in 6 months. So I guess I'm going to lose my job. And so I did, and I enrolled in a camp or a college nearby and went back to school full time. And I had how old was my son? 4 years old. I had a 4-year-old, and my husband was, just about to start his doctorate. So we were like in a real transitional phase in our lives. And I was worried about, like, we had a house, how am I going to pay my mortgage? I just lost my job. So I really thought, like, I have the time to do this because I'm just in school. So I was in a space of joining an MLM. So when I joined, I had time. I had more time to host the parties and do the things, because I was just, I don't want to say just in college, but like, college schedules are a lot more loose than a full-time work job. So I really dove into it, and I did it, for that year. I really was doing a lot of it. And the job I ended up having full-time after I graduated, I started part-time. I was still doing it while I was doing my other job. And then when I was student teaching, I was doing it like pretty heavily, and I was doing fundraisers with it for my show choir, and, thinking that I was making money. I thought I was making money, because I would use some of that money to pay for some things. And then I was encouraged to post, like, because of Perfectly Posh, I paid for my son's dance lessons or whatever. But then I would buy more product with my actual money from my bank account. So it just all kind of canceled out. And then once I started actually my full-time job, when I finally graduated, it just kind of fell to the wayside, because like real full-time teaching is, it takes up all your time and it's exhausting. And I just didn't have the wherewithal to like try and do both things. So I just naturally started letting it go, not because I was becoming anti-MLM. I just didn't have the time, but I was still purchasing if I needed to. And if people, said, hey, I need this face wash still, what's your link? I would send them my link, but I wasn't making any money. I wasn't ranking. I wasn't doing anything. And then, this is 2022. So we moved to the house I'm in now last April. So we've been here only a year now. And around that time, I had a Norwex party. And I mean, I killed it. I was the best host Norwex has ever seen. But I became like obsessed with trying to hit each next mark of what the host would earn. And so I was going live in the Facebook group, because I just moved. I was like, look at all this stuff I need for my house, all these cleaning things that I need. And the girl, the rep for Norwex was like, you'd be so great at this. You should totally join. And it's free this month. And I was like, I'm still with Perfectly Posh. I do not want to join another MLM. Like, no. But there were points where I was starting to like think about it. And I mean, that party ended up having $1,000 in sales. I got everything for free. Like I have just a closet full of Norwex that I don't use. I don't use it, but I wanted it, like, because they create FOMO and they create this, like, you got to have it, you got to get it. Like, everybody needs this stuff. And so it was right around the time that this party ended that this woman was trying to recruit me. And the other ironic part was the person who connected me with this other rep was my former principal. So she, like, you trust people, like, and it's not that she was like trying to manipulate me. She wanted to get free stuff. I wanted to get free stuff, but that's just kind of how it ends up going. You're like, but it's my former boss. Like, of course it's my, so around that time is when I found Roberta Blevins on TikTok. And it's funny because when I talk to other creators, they're like, were you mad when you found Roberta? Because a lot of people, that's how we all came to this place, is that we found Roberta.
Can I take a quick,
yeah.
I'm not sure if everybody knows who you and I, for you and I, she's a minor celebrity in our world.
Yes, she really is.
Can you just 30 seconds on who Rebecca Blevins is for the audience?
Roberta Blevins is a former LuLaRoe consultant. She was very successful. She was at the top of the pyramid. She left the cult. She left LuLaRoe. She is featured in Amazon's documentary LuLaRich. She's been an advocate for anti-MLM for the past 5 years. She was also on Leah Remini and Mike Ryder's podcast called Fair Game. So she is kind of the unofficial face of the anti-MLM movement.
Good.
As it were. So at this point, LuLaRich was just about to come out. So she wasn't even still at the point that she is now, but her TikToks were really, really popular. And there were a couple of nights where I was just laying in bed on her profile, just watching all the TikToks, her mini dives, her talking about faith manipulation and pain point manipulation and all these different tactics that people use in MLMs to get you to recruit you, to sell. And even though at the time I wasn't having technically a negative experience in Perfectly Posh, I realized that I was doing all those things. I was hearing all of those things. And so I started to be like, oh my God, like, ugh. So then a couple of weeks later, my former boss joined Norwex. And right around the time that she joined Norwex, I was sent a video where a scientist was debunking the Norwex claim. So if you don't know about Norwex, they're a Norwegian cleaning company. They sell those micro cloths that you're supposed to be able to just clean with just water. And because they have silver backlock, it like kills all the bacteria. So their big thing is this demo they'll do where they're like, we're going to rub raw chicken all over this cutting board and then wipe it up with Lysol and then wipe it off with this Norwex cloth and see what bacteria is still there. And then they would use like these little test tubes, and the Norwex cloth, the bacteria was gone, but the Lysol wipe, the bacteria was still there. Well, this video I found from this scientist, she says, well, if you use the Lysol wipe appropriately, where you let it dry for 10 minutes, then the bacteria will not be there. So she tested the Norwex cloth up against dollar store microfiber cloths, and they all worked the same. There was no difference between them. So I sent that to my boss, and she was like, I'm aware, thanks. And I was like, okay. So I just started seeing all of these different things. And this was like summer, like June, July, that I found this. So I had been just consuming the content for a number of months. And then I don't really know what tipped the scale, but somewhere around September, and I know the date because I just went back to look and see when I uploaded my first YouTube and Instagram video, and it was September 22nd. So I don't know really what really was the catapult or the catalyst, but I just remember laying in bed and just like thinking about all the things I wanted to say and wanting to talk about how I was viewing MLMs now. And then the I don't want no Heinz was just like playing through my head. And so I woke up, I got my daughter to daycare, got my son up to school, did an hour work. And during lunch, I just started making the Instagram and the YouTube, and I recorded my first YouTube video. And the first like 3 videos, I just say like, this is probably my last video. Like, I'm just like saying something. And then clearly that didn't go well. But, at that point I had been consuming so much, YouTube content too, Chelsea Suarez and Isabel Lanter and Aaron Bees and all of these other people. And some of these people were top ranking reps in their MLMs who realized that they were making a ton of money, but the people in their teams were not. And so that was also kind of the breaking point, was when I realized that my upline, who I care for deeply, she's a good person, she was making a ton of money in Perfectly Posh. Before I joined, she told me that she was making at least $50,000 the year before. And I was like, that's more than I make as a teacher. Like, that's incredible. Mm-hmm. But I realized that it was because of her downline. It was because of the bonuses she was making, that if she was just to try and survive on just the sales of the product, she wouldn't be making $50,000. Like, she would have to the amount of products she would have to sell. I did a graphic on it a couple months ago, was just like, she'd have to sell like $11,000 worth of product each month to make $50,000 in a year. And that's impossible. Not one person can sell $11,000 in product, like realistically. So that's when I just realized that it all kind of was what it was. And I needed to talk about it. And I wasn't going to be able to move on with my day because I have ADHD. So I hyperfixate on things when I get like, focused on them. So I wasn't going to be able to move on with my day until I talked about it. And, because I work from home, I don't have coworkers to like, just be like, can I just tell you about this thing that I read or that I'm experiencing? So I needed to talk to my computer, and that's kind of how it all started, and just kind of snowballed from there.
Tell me about the characters. Where did this?
Well, so the characters are, and that's interesting too. Like, I started thinking about, so it's like really hard to say how they came up. I think Halloween is what kind of did it. I was trying to come up with a Halloween costume because like I said, I started in late September. So Halloween was coming, and I thought, oh, I'm going to go as a Hunbot. I'm going to go as, someone who's just trying to sell. And then I was like, oh, I'll go as a pyramid scheme. That's going to be my costume. So I was like building this. I built, out of like old boxes from Sam's Club. I built a pyramid. I was like spending my time doing arts and crafts, building this little pyramid box. And I put an opening. And when you reached in, you got another little pyramid that had candy attached to it because it was Halloween. But I told everyone at the party, like, if you reach in and join my team, inside will be one of the false promises that I'm going to promise you. And then when they would pull out their pyramid and open it up, it would say like, congratulations, you've earned an eating disorder, or congratulations, you're now $25,000 in debt, like all of the bad things that happen in MLMs. And so while I was doing that, that's when I kind of created Sarah Lee's scheme, who is not loosely based, pretty heavily based on what we call a mega hun. Her name is Jessie Lee Ward. She is one of the top recruiters for Prove It, which is a ketone MLM. And so I started creating her. At that same time, I also created Kakaylee, which is a concoction of all of the Monet girls with the big hat, and I just kind of, if someone was like, well, who is she based off? I was like, all of them. She's based off of all of them because they're all the same. But what really kind of tipped the scales on the characters, I have this wig that I've had since high school that I wore in my senior year high school musical. So what we're looking at 18, 20 years now. And I was unpacking still because we had just moved. So we were still unpacking. And I was like, oh, what character can I come up with for her? So I thought, oh, wouldn't it be funny since I sold Tupperware and I have all this Tupperware if, we'll name her Barb. And if she is the like original Tupperware saleswoman, but because of the pandemic, she's trying to move to virtual because she can't have in-house parties. So she's like on Facebook. And so like my first video ever, I just held it right with my phone, like right here. So all you just see is up her nose and her glasses hanging down here. And, she didn't do too well, but it was like, whatever, like, I didn't care. I was just doing this for fun because like I said, like I create content, at my normal job, and then I have more time. So I just want to keep creating content. But where Barb took off, truthfully, was there was a really big team in Monet, which for your viewers, if you don't know, Monet is a hair company. They're shampoo. That also sells skincare and protein shakes. It makes no sense. But there was a big team within this group called WFAB, which stands for Work From Anywhere Boss Builders.
Right.
And they were like a big team.
Right.
And right on Thanksgiving week, it might have been Thanksgiving night or the night before Thanksgiving, I forget. It was leaked from one of the top leaders that they were leaving Monet to go to iGenius, which is a Bitcoin multi-level marketing company, which is just very much outwardly a pyramid scheme, a Ponzi. Like it is just, I don't know how anyone looks at this Bitcoin MLM and doesn't go, that's a scam. And so a bunch of us anti-MLM creators were going to be on the call where they were explaining to their team about why they were leaving, how they found out. They didn't want their team to find out this way. People on the team were mad. Like, what do you mean we're leaving Monet? I want to still sell shampoo. I don't understand Bitcoin. So we were all like, the whole little community of us were abuzz with like, oh, we got the link. We're going to be on it. So I was getting a shower and I thought, I'm going to go to this meeting as Barb. Because why not? And so I put the wig on and I got live on Instagram and I was recording the meeting. And so I'm live on Instagram as Barb with like, just, appearing the camera like this. And I'm just like in the meeting, but there's like 500 people in this meeting. So like, it's very unlikely that they saw me and they didn't see me. But it was the first time. At this point, my Instagram had maybe 500 followers. My YouTube was very small. I don't know. And I had so many people on this live because people were sharing it like this woman is on this call as an old woman, like it's hysterical. So that video, so then I uploaded that to YouTube, that got a lot of views. So that's kind of what, catapulted it. And then I just kept coming up with more ideas of song parodies, things that Barb could do, parodying Jessie Lee Ward as Scheme Lee. Like she once did a training called How to Choose Your Mentor. And I did a parody on it called How to Choose Your Cult Leader. And I really almost did word for word what she said. I just like kind of listened to it and typed up a script and then changed out some words. And I didn't have to, it's kind of like the material wrote itself for me. And that's just kind of where it all evolved. And I kept going back and forth between like, am I doing content as me? Am I doing content as parodies and creator, like as, you know, characters and parodies? And it just kind of seems like everybody that has been consuming my content enjoys both. But what I have really honed in on, that I've found that most of my my subscribers really enjoy, is my commentary on problematic issues within MLMs, you know, not deep dives, not necessarily talking about like, this is what this company is, but saying like, this is a problematic thing they've said, and let's talk about why it's problematic, or identifying manipulation and things like that. So that's kind of what my content has turned into.
So let me tell you, as I'm an N of one, so I'm only one example. How did I find you? The Thanksgiving Barb Zoom call,
yeah,
was suggested to me because I had already subscribed to others. So this brings up a point which is actually going to be of profound relevance, I hope, to the content creators on the network. Entertain first.
Yes.
Now, if your stuff is not entertaining, and Jason Stapleton, who created this group, is all over this. You could be spouting pure gold from your mouth, but if the viewers are not entertained, you're not going to get eyeballs. And I was consuming anti-MLM content, and I came across Barb, and I met Barb before I met Mallory, and I said, this is hysterical. What the hell is this? You know, and I subscribed.
I appreciate you doing that.
because this got my attention, and so that brought me in, and I listened to the message. Now, I wasn't going to say this before, but what I mean, as I told you before we went live, the intellectual argument is what attaches me, whereas the emotional appeal is really what pulls people in to MLMs and emotional manipulation, in addition to all the other types of manipulation, is what keeps them there. But so, you know, you come for Barb, and you stay for Mallory when she's, you know, when she's being serious, and that I think is what is responsible for the success that your YouTube channel has. I don't do Instagram except for business. I don't do. I realize that TikTok is the social platform now, but never even downloaded it. So that's for the kids.
Yeah,
the kids can do that, and that's the stuff that I found so valuable about your content. Now, here is what I think is the best part. I know that there is a huge push among anti-MLM content creators right now to engage in some activism. And this activism involves petitioning the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, regarding their review of the business opportunity rule. The business opportunity rule is a guideline, which, I mean, it's a guideline as opposed to a law, but it's got teeth in it. In other words, this governmental agency possesses the power to impose fines. And the business opportunity rule right now allows MLM companies, multi-level marketing companies, to get away without certain disclosures that are required of virtually any other business opportunity. And all of that is great. And I appreciate that you guys are doing that. Having said that, I think the most value that the anti-MLM movement contributes to the American economy is precisely what you, Mallory, and your colleagues are doing right now, which is putting content. No, I'm not just trying to blow smoke here.
No, I know.
This is what's going to do the trick, right? Because folks are going to watch this, and people are going to come across you like they came across Roberta Blevins and everybody else, and say, okay, now another really valuable piece of content, which I'm not sure that you, or pieces of content that you did, which I find for potential Huns or actual Huns out there, is your reaction videos to your own stuff. This stuff is so valuable. Jessica Hickson does it. Bees does it.
Yeah. And that's where I got the idea.
Roberta actually started doing it. And
Yeah.
I wonder what took her long. I mean, because it's enormously embarrassing. And I get that, right?
Yeah.
It's enormously embarrassing to look back and say, I can't believe I did this. And it's humiliating, you know,
Yeah.
but so valuable that you do this. And I didn't tell you this offline. I'm telling you this online. I would encourage you to do this because this is the true before and after.
Yeah.
Look, and so basically, folks, what this is content creators like Mallory show their TikToks and their Instagrams and their Zoom calls that they did while they were in an MLM, and simultaneously critique it. And for me, that sends such a powerful message.
It was born out of the idea of, you know, and I got the idea from Aaron Bees and Jessica Hickson, because I think I saw Aaron Bees do it first and then Jessica Hickson, and I was watching and I was like, this is riveting. And I mean, I don't even have nearly the amount of Hun content of myself that they do, but I realized, you know, if we're going to be showing other people and criticizing them, it's equally as important to say we can deal the shit. And now we're going to also deal it to ourselves and say, look, we're not just criticizing what you're saying, we're criticizing what we are saying. Like, we said the same things that you are saying. We are calling ourselves out. And I do think that it is one of the most critical parts of education for this community, is being able to just recognize who you used to be, what you used to say, and then saying, here's why I said this. Like, this is exactly why I said this. Perfect. So it's not just us saying, I think this person is saying this because of this. It's saying, I know exactly why I said that. And here is why. So then it makes you question when you hear other people say it. Well, Mallory and Aaron and Jessica, they said that they weren't being truthful when they said that. And now this person is saying that. I bet you they're also not being truthful. So it creates that seed of doubt that needs to be there in these situations where people are creating false claims, or, you know, creating a picture of their life that is not real. And that's
exactly right. It allows critical thinking to sneak in a context where critical thinking is not common. People who have suffered through my anti-MLM content on the network know that this is totally critical thinking. And it's like, okay, like for instance, I do an entire episode on the math. Who gives a crap about the math?
But
I mean, the math is devastating. It kills the whole MLM model. No one cares about math. But when they see a survivor, come out, show their stuff, it's the same face,
right?
Before and after. Then it comes in and says, "Okay, I'm starting to get it now." Yeah. Very, very valuable stuff. You've been very generous with your time. Mallory, and I know you're way busier than I am. My kids are adults now, so I don't need to to drive them around. So there's one thing that you say often during your videos. I'm not even sure if you hear yourself saying it, which is critically important. The distributors are the customers. This is a feature of MLMs, which I think is an essential feature, and it's not talked about that much. It is possible for MLMs like Tupperware. I don't know what their numbers actually look like. I am confident that it is the case for Monate, that the entire company could exist if there were no retail customers outside of distributors. They would still be making billions. Amway, which makes $9 billion of the $34 billion that are made worldwide in MLMs.
That's crazy.
Could survive without outside retail customers. And this is a very, very valuable point that you made. Almost impossible to trace for historical reasons. And I'm glad that you say that. Now, which is to say, there is a small amount of retail sales. But the MLM model is built such that these companies would do fine. They'd still show a profit at the end of the year if there were no retail sales. Anyway, sorry. So anyway,
well, no, but
thank you.
Well,
for
yeah,
sharing.
and just to piggyback on that real quick. I mean, when you think about it, every MLM, every single one, they'll sell the product, but then there's always the pitch of, you could buy just the product, or you could start your own business and then you get all of these products. So they're not just trying to sell you product, they're trying to get you to join the company, which then creates a closed system. And that's how I exactly joined Posh, because part of it was, I'm out of my product, I need more product. If I buy this kit, I'm going to get what I need plus more. So I might as well just join. So now I've joined the company. So now I'm a distributor, and so now I'm a distributor who is buying my own product, and it all becomes a closed system. So that's exactly what it is. You end up joining, and it all becomes money that just is within the MLM pool.
And you are paying an
Right.
exorbitant amount of money for soap and
Right.
pamper stuff that
Yeah.
you could get for a lot less on Amazon or
Yep.
or anywhere. Why?
Anywhere.
Because there is a chain to feed
Yep.
up the pyramid, and so that's why among scams, yes, I said the word, among scams, this one is particularly pernicious because it's hidden. If you fall victim to a rug pull or a pump and dump in the crypto world, okay, that's flat out fraud. People understand that. People get it.
Right.
People don't get when you're inside a pyramid. You don't realize that, I'm paying an enormous amount for stuff that I could pick up at CVS or at Stop and Shop, is what we have in here in
Sure.
the East, and make an energy drink, and for a fraction of the cost. Anyway, so
well, let me give you an example too. So
please.
to go off of this, a lot of people, the price of these products is so expensive because it is paying for the bonuses that come from the downline to the upline. It's paying for those free trips or earned trips. It's paying for all of those things, right?
Mm.
And a lot of people are trying to argue right now, pro MLM people, that when they make money off their downline, so let's say I'm your downline, right? And I've made sales. They're trying to say, well, that's not coming from me directly. That's coming from the company. Well, right. That is coming from the company, but the price of the product. So yeah, so if I make $100 in commissions, I don't have to give you $25 of my commissions. I'm going to still make $100, and then the company is going to give you a $25 bonus off of my 100. So I don't get less money. The company's, but it's all from the product. The price of the product has that built in.
Correct.
So, and that's what I thought. I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm not paying my upline. I get all the commission I earn. That is mine. But that's because the price of the product is so expensive. It's all built in. So yes, the company is paying those extra commissions, those extra bonuses, but it's because I hit a certain number that they're able to then give you that money. So it doesn't come out of my pocket directly, but you need me to hit that mark so that you can hit, you know what I mean? So that's why the price of these products is so expensive, so that they can add all that in.
So I'm gonna only ask a couple more questions because again, you've been enormously generous with your time, and I appreciate that so much. So could you please provide some advice to any present or future nomads who may watch this, because God willing, this content is going to be in this space for some time.
Sure.
Who may be considering, who may be in MLMs, who may be considering MLMs. What words of wisdom, because you've been there, right?
Yeah, I mean,
what would you say?
There's a couple of things that if somebody is trying to recruit you and you're at a point where you're thinking, this might be a good opportunity, I could make some money, they've really made it seem like a really appetizing deal. There's a couple of things I would advise that you ask the person recruiting you. Number one, ask for an income disclosure statement. Now, people in MLMs, they love to argue, well, those are bogus. The income disclosure statement includes all the people who didn't even sell. But what everybody needs to know is that currently it is not required for multi-level marketing companies to provide an income disclosure statement. They do have to provide an income disclaimer if somebody is saying you can make blah, blah, blah on this, or you can earn this car, they do have to provide a disclaimer, but that is different from an income disclosure statement. An income disclosure statement is going to show you what the average annual income was for a rep in every single one of the ranks within the company. But again, there's no regulation of what they should look like. So they can put out anything, that looks whatever. When they argue that these don't matter because it includes the reps who don't sell, you can argue back and say, then why don't they put out one that doesn't include them, that only includes the reps who do sell? Because there's no regulation on it. They can put out an IDS however they want. There's no requirement for it. So the fact that they include the inactive reps stands to reason then that they don't leave those people out, because the active reps are also it's not an impressive number as well. So that's the first question I would suggest. The second one is, I would suggest that you ask the person recruiting you, what do you get from me joining? What kind of bonus? Now, for companies like Lime Life sells beauty. They're by the Alcone company, and Alcone is a big makeup brand in New York. They have many different offshoots for Broadway makeup. Like they've been around for ages, but their MLM is Lime Life. And they've recently changed their compensation plan, but originally, when you recruited someone, you did not get a bonus from that person until they hit a certain sales point. So the recruiters always used to like to say, we don't get anything from you joining. We get nothing from you joining. Right. But once you hit X amount of money in sales, then they get a big bonus. So asking the question of, what do you get from, what is it? How does it benefit you if I join? And do I have to hit a certain amount of sales in order for you to get a benefit? Asking those questions and seeing how they answer is really, really what's important to that. And I think, we had talked off, before we went live about the doing your own research. And I like that phrase. And I also don't like that phrase, because do your own research is used so wildly on both sides of every argument. The far left, the far right, the anti-MLM, the pro-MLM, everyone do your own research. So I don't want to say don't do your own research. Research companies, but make sure that what you are consuming in your research is on both sides, that it's not in an echo chamber, that it's not just your upline saying, this is what we're going to give you. This is what this has. And don't listen to anything else. If they're telling you not to listen to anything else, they're trying to control your information, which is part of the BITE model, which, Stephen Hassan with the BITE model and information control. They're trying to make sure that you don't hear what we are saying, because once you hear what we are saying, then you have cognitive dissonance. And then you're going, no, wait a minute, what is right and what is wrong? And they don't want you to have that. They want you to just dive right in. If they're saying to you, don't think about it, just do it. Just dive right in. Don't try to figure it out. That's a major red flag as well. So those are the things. Income disclosure statement, asking them, how much do you benefit from me joining? And then if they're saying things like, just dive in, don't think about it, just do it. Those are red flags of, to just be wary of before you would join.
Then let me ask you this, because so much of this involves recruitment of people close to you. What if this person that you're talking to is your spouse? Is your significant other? God forbid, your child?
Right. That is the really frustrating part about family. Monet recently, they have, I haven't finished the series yet for a lot of reasons, but they had a Monet men Zoom call where they are talking to the husbands about why they need to be invested and why they need to get, support. And my advice is, if you have to convince your partner, your spouse, your child, as to why they should, why it's a good idea, why it's not a scam. Because if they say to you, this sounds like a scam, explain to me why it's not. Explain to me why it's not a pyramid scheme. If you are in a situation where you have to explain to someone that it's not a pyramid scheme, ask yourself, If I presented any other type of business opportunity, any other type of career change, would I have to convince my spouse that I was not going to join a scam? So I'm going back to school to get my master's in school counseling. Did I have to convince my husband that that was going to be a bad idea or a scam? No. He was like, is that what you want to do? Yes. Great. I support you. But if you have to convince your spouse as to why it's a good idea, and it's all on the idea of what you might make. It's not, when I join this company, I will make X amount of money per hour that I work. But it's, oh, if I join, if I get this, if I do that, if I work hard enough. There is no other industry in this, I swear, in this world where you have to convince people that what you're doing is not a scam. So if you have family trying to recruit you, say that to them. Can you convince me this is not a scam? And ask them, is there another career? Is there another industry that you would have to defend so fervently? Is there another industry where they tell you what to say when people accuse you of being a pyramid scheme? And if the answer is no, then that's the answer. I think, for me and my marriage, my husband was willing to just let me kind of do it because, he knew that I was probably going to do it without him, like whether or not he approved anyhow. But he did say he was didn't think it was a good idea. When it's your family, it's super hard and it's really uncomfortable. And I have a friend right now who her other friend joined Arbonne, and she called me and was like, what do I say? And I was like, honestly, offer her some resources, tell her that you will not be purchasing from her, and that you understand that she's trying to make a go of this, but that, you're just not going to be making any purchases. And if you'd like to discuss why, just give them clear facts, try to stay not emotional about it, offer them videos and resources to listen to. And, it's just and eventually they'll come to see, and it might take time and it might take some money loss, but eventually they come around, unless they are like, the 0.01% that hits it big.
Well, all I got to say is keep up the good work. What you're doing is extremely valuable, and the nomads know why I say this, but I will repeat it again so that you can hear it, Mallory. And that is that the MLM industry, to me, is a cancer on the body of the American economy, in the sense that it is sucking away energy, talent, skills, experience, and knowledge that could otherwise produce value.
Absolutely.
And instead is subtracting from it. So to the extent that you are turning non-productive individuals into productive people for themselves, for their families, and their communities, you're doing very valuable work indeed.
Thank you.
So I don't want no Huns. The link is going to be in the description, folks. I'm going to sign off here. Say so long to everybody, Mallory, and then and then I got a quick question for you afterwards.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much for having me.